Riff, Raff, Justin here, and today is a special episode because this is the Masterclass with Jake Smith. He walks through emotional intelligence, what it looks like to have healthy relationships, and I feel like this is going to be a helpful listen if you were not able to be at that masterclass. And next week, we actually sit down with Jake and continue the conversation, continue some of the Q&As that are found at the end of this episode. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'll start and just say, I love this church. I love this community. My wife grew up not far from this area. I have a family that's very dear to me here. I love your pastor. I love Preston. I love so many congregants that go to this church that I've had the opportunity to be with. So this isn't just a gig for me. This is something that's deeply personal. So it's truly an honor to be hanging out with you guys here this evening and sharing some space. Thanks for letting me be here. My name's Jake, as Preston said, and I've been married to my wife, Allison, for 23 years. We have 3 children. I have Kobe, who's 18, just graduated high school. I have Jet, who just turned 16 and earned his driver's license. And I have Marley, who just turned 13 and is finishing her last year of middle school. Being a dad of all teenagers in my mind has always been something that happens to other people, but it doesn't ever happen to you. And yet here I am in this phase of both celebrating the young men and the young woman that my kids are becoming as they step more into their fullness, and grieving the loss of these younger, more innocent versions of themselves that I deeply miss. I used to come home from work and the kids would hear me enter the home. And they'd all come running from their various places and activities to greet me, calling to each other, "Daddy's home, Daddy's home." And they would always want to immediately engage me in some type of a game or activity. We engaged in animal warfare, for example, where every stuffed animal in our home, of which there is plenty, would become a weaponized projectile. That was my favorite game. Sometimes we would wrestle. I no longer do this because my middle son can squat 2 of me, so I no longer wrestle. But the game they seemed to most often want to play was hide and seek. And in hide and seek, I was always it. So as soon as the kids got the green light that I was on board for a round, they would all scurry off to hide somewhere in the house, eager anticipation oozing from them. And I would begin the countdown before I would come and find them. But hide and seek with my kids raised concerns for me about their mental well-being. And the problem was this. When I reached the end of my count, I would call out the traditional, "Ready or not, here I come." And they would immediately come sprinting out of their various covert places, tackle me to the ground, laughing and giggling. And I consider myself something of a teacher, something of a guide, so I would get down on one knee, I would look them in the eyes, and I would take it upon myself to teach them the ins and the outs of the game hide and seek. So I would look at them and I would say, patiently, the goal of hide and seek is that I count. You hide. If I can't find you, you win. If I do find you, I win. That was met with giggling, which gave me no reassurance. Nonetheless, round 2. I start to count. They run off to hide. I begin to announce, ready or not, and they don't even let me complete the sentence before they come bursting from their covert places again, tackle me to the ground, laughing and giggling. Now, I'm committed to my children. I love them unconditionally. But I did feel the responsibility later that evening to inform my wife that our kids may need to live with us for a long time. Now, she would never admit this, but I believe my wife has the spiritual gift of wisdom. And this particular evening, her wisdom took the form of this explanation. Jake, the joy the kids find in the game of hide and seek has nothing to do with the fact that they get to hide, and everything to do with the joyful experience of being found. Christian psychiatrist Kurt Thompson says we all are born into the world looking for someone, looking for us. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl listed one of the essential ways to experience meaning in life is to dwell in a community where you are deeply known and loved. And clinical psychotherapist Chip Dodd says that APGAR test they give you 1 minute after you're born, and then again 5 minutes after you're born, will the baby reach out? Will the baby cry out? Will the baby take in? He says that's not just a physiological test, that's an emotional test. From the moment we take our first breath, we naturally know how to reach out for others, how to cry out for what we need, and how to receive the nurture and the care that is provided for us. Because here is what you knew as a baby intuitively. You knew that if you were loved, truly loved, you would be taken care of. You'd be kept warm, you'd be fed, you'd be protected if you were loved. We are made for connection. And so you can go ahead and mark on your personal timeline of your life, born looking for someone, looking for you. And then draw that line all the way across to your present moment here in this room. Some of you, that's only been a few years. Others, it's been decades. But wherever you are, fast forward to present day. And even though it now might be buried deep, you still have this longing in you. You are still looking for someone who is looking for you. As a human being, you have this ache deep inside you for something Dan Allender, psychologist, calls attunement. And here's what Allender says attunement is. I see you. I feel with you. I'm willing to suffer alongside of you. And I delight in you. That's attunement. I see you, feel with you, willing to suffer with you, and I delight in you. Attunement is the pinnacle of all deeply connected, healthy, lasting relationships. And the foundational blocks at the bottom of that pyramid that hold attunement up are containment on one side and repair on the other. That's the structure that supports healthy, lasting, forever relationships. Attunement is the pinnacle, supported by containment and repair. Now, here's what containment is. Containment means you don't have to get it perfect with me. I don't require that of you. Containment is a playing field that we design and support together where you can step on my toe, you can be clumsy, you can blow it with me, and now I'm not gonna let you hurt me, okay? Like if you're abusing me, I'm walking off the field, okay? But in most relationships where there's some semblance of health, containment is it's okay if you screw up, okay? I'm not going anywhere, all right? Repair is not if, but when you blow it or I blow it. We're both committed to circling back around and doing that repair work together. And good repair work has to be specific. It can't just be, sorry, I'm sorry. Good repair work means I have to say, I know when I said or did this, it did damage to you and it did damage to us. And I am sorry. Will you forgive me? Okay? Attunement, containment, repair is the structure of deeply connected, lasting relationships. It's where relationships go to thrive. And when a relationship consists of two people who are committed to this attuning work, that is a relationship that will be authentic and honest and will last forever. And it's a good thing because that's what you're made for. But here is the very large problem. As a general rule, me, you, all of us have attunement paralysis. We can't do it, even if we really want to. We can't do it. I have a friend in Nashville. His name's Kyle Negretti. He conducted a research project recently that looked at over 10,000 highly engaged church congregants from California to New York, everywhere in between, across denominations, okay? And he found that more than 80% of people highly engaged in small groups and Bible studies reported not feeling comfortable to show up authentically within those groups. Study theology together? Comfortable. Share opinions about what's happening in our world and debate that out a bit? Get a little bristly? Comfortable. Let myself be deeply known and seek to deeply know another? Not comfortable. I attend a few intentional men's gatherings where I'm from in Nashville, Tennessee. And a common theme across these gatherings are these men talking about authentic relationships, how important they are, how we're not meant to go it alone. You know, we need each other. Iron sharpening iron is one of the most popular verses in those communities, you know. I obviously agree with that assertion. But I also happen to believe that we are largely challenged when it comes to our ability, the actual skills required to be in those authentic relationships. I challenged this recently in one of these gatherings, and one of the guys there pushed back. He said, I don't think there's a guy in this group that I can't call at 3 o'clock in the morning and you wouldn't show up for me. There's not a guy in this group that you can't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning and I wouldn't show up for you. And that's the common measure. That's the metric, isn't it, that we use, cliche for deep relationships. Who can I call at 3 a.m. and who would show up for me at 3 a.m.? Here's the thing. A, how often does that actually happen? I mean, not very much. Doesn't even happen a few times a year, really. But B, think about it. That's honestly not that hard. It's not that hard to just show up for each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. I might even get a tiny kick out of it. I might actually enjoy that a little bit. You know what's hard? Actually doing the work to attune with another. Putting forth the effort to know them at their core, and then taking the terrifying risk of vulnerability and allowing yourself to be truly known back. That's hard. So do you know what we do because it's so hard? We trade real connection that comes from attunement, and we settle instead for stuff like pleasure, intellectual sparring, wonderful shared experiences. For guys, rah-rah, chest-bumping masculinity, or political or theological alignment. And then we point to those kinds of things and say, look at us having hard conversations and emoting and experiencing fun things and passionately standing for something together and holding each other accountable. We ask each other the hard questions. And we call it connection, but it's not. It's a false sense of connection. And the hard truth is, that's really all we know how to do. Because many of us, and perhaps more accurately, most of us, self included, have lost the ability to attune. Now, I was a pastor for 21 years before I started doing what I do now, kind of this deep internal work. And I was very dutiful as a pastor, as a leader, as a husband, and as a father, okay? And part of that duty required me to put my little daughter on my shoulders every night, no matter how tired, no matter how long my day or week was, walk her up those stairs, read her a bedtime story, turn off the light, and lie with her until she fell asleep. Every night. Good dad. That's my philosophy of fathering, okay? One night, she's 4 years old. I walked her up the stairs. I read her the story. I turned off the light. I was lying with her till she fell asleep. And her little voice emerged out of the darkness. And she said, "Hey, Dad, if I could line up all the dads in the world." I sat up, started feeling for my phone to see if I could subtly hit record. This was my moment that I've been waiting for. She said, if I could line up all the dads in the world and I could pick a nice dad or you, I just want you to know I'd still pick you. I said, "Oh, honey, is daddy not very nice?" She said, "Not really, but I'd still pick you." And I genuinely believe there's this beautiful little girl who is trying to express this committed, undying love for me. There was nothing kind of secondary or passive aggressive in it. She just wanted to express her love for me. But I walked away with a truth bomb that honestly, most people in my life probably wouldn't have had the courage to tell me, like, here's what it's like to be with you. But secondly, even if they had the courage, I probably would have dismissed it. Like, that's your opinion or something. I'm sorry you feel that way, something like that. Or I would have been defensive. But I couldn't resist the sentiments of my own daughter. And that's one of the altar moments that kind of sent me into my own journey, because I taught everybody else how to live their life. And if I'm missing this, I've done everything I've ever known to do. Spiritually disciplined, I study the scriptures, I believe I had good doctrinal confessions. I should probably be reaping the benefit of some of the promises of scripture, like the fruit of the Holy Spirit, the evidence of the activity of the Spirit in a person's life, love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. I'm looking at myself in the mirror after this moment, I'm going, if I'm honest, I don't have that stuff. Not any consistent kind of way, like peace. I'm anxious a lot. Patience. You should see me get my kids ready for school in the morning. Gentleness. Not even close. And how could I be missing it? If anybody should have it, I should probably have it. I, like so many, had lost the ability to attune. That's different than the ability to be vigilant or to be tough or to grind something out or to solve a problem or to learn something new, right? I had lost the ability to attune. And do you know why? You know why this happens to us? Because somewhere between being born looking for someone looking for us and the human longing that still aches in our bones to be known by others, somewhere between those two things, we got hurt. You got hurt. We have all at some level experienced relational violation or an attachment wound of some kind. Now, you may be here thinking, this is a wonderful community. I know you care a lot about family and all of that. So you may be thinking, I haven't been hurt. My parents were good people. I had clothes on my back. There was food on my table. I got birthday presents. We went to church. And if that's you, if that's your story like it's my story, I want you to know that those who share a similar story with you that I work with a lot tend to be some of the most confused people that I work with because they seemingly had all their needs met and their parents were decent people, high-functioning members of society, and so they can't understand, why am I so angry? Why am I so anxious all the time? Why am I depressed? Why am I so self-conscious? It's because you have to understand there's two kinds of hurt. And the first kind is the kind that's done to us. And this is physical abuse, this is sexual abuse, and so on. Many of you in this room have experienced this kind of hurt, and it is not okay. I'm so sorry you had to suffer those kinds of egregious relational violations. Some of you have experienced either also, or this was your experience, the second kind of hurt, and that's what's withheld from you. And this kind of hurt is very insidious because it's difficult to name. Adam Young says, what's important to understand here is in either case, whether your kind of hurt was the kind that was done to you or the kind that was you needed something, nurture from a parent, guidance to be seen or something, and that was withheld from you. In either case, if your heart never got the consistent message that you are delightful, as a boy or a girl especially, you are delightful, then you are carrying around a broken, obliterated heart that's been smashed and pieced back together. And if your heart didn't have the experience 5 out of 10 times of being seen, truly feeling seen by your caregivers and felt with by them, not go to your room, not suck it up, not figure it out, not come back when you can have felt with, suffered alongside, and delighted in. You are carrying around in your chest a smashed apart and pieced back together heart. And here's the tragedy of that. Smash burger hearts are incapable of attunement. Incapable. The very thing you are both made to experience and made to offer to others, you cannot do. Because Dan Allender says, from your hurt grows something called contempt. Contempt is the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, is worthless, or deserving of scorn. Contempt is the opposite of attunement. Contempt is what I'm actually looking for in some of my sessions and in some of the groups that I facilitate. If you could look inside my brain and see what I'm asking myself, I'm often asking myself, where is the contempt? And do you know how I know it when I see it? Well, there's two forms of contempt. There's offensive, kind of attacking contempt, and then there's defensive, blocking, walling up contempt, okay? Offensive contempt shows up as judgment, making judgments about others and situations, accusation, and blame. So if I'm in a session and I see judgment coming from them, well, here's what she's like, and here's what her family's like, and there's all these judgments. There it is. There's the contempt. Accusation, well, they did this and they did that, and that's what caused me to want to react or say what I say or did what I did, you know. Or blame, like I'm powerless. This is the reason, that's the reason. Something outside of me, okay. Offensive contempt. Or defensive contempt looks like justifying, rationalizing, and spin, okay? Justifying, let me start with rationalizing. Rationalizing is, here's why it makes sense that I did what I did or said what I said. Justifying is, here's why it's good that I did what I did or said what I said. You get the difference there? Rationalizing, no, it might not be good, might have hurt some people, but here's why it makes sense I did it. Justifying is like, no, here's why it was the right thing to do and say. And then spin is overemphasizing certain aspects of the story, underemphasizing others, shifting the light around, maybe a little gaslighting. The ultimate goal of spin is, how do I get you to see what I want you to see, or believe what I want you to believe, or come to the conclusion that I want you to come to by the way I handle information, or withhold information, or tell the story. Okay, that's spin. So, whenever I see judgment, accusation, blame, justifying, rationalizing, and spin, I'm overjoyed. I've just found gold that will lead me to your hurt, okay? Now, the problem is, if you're not sitting in a session with somebody who can identify your contempt so they can find your hurt, so they can help you heal it, okay? What happens is, it gets established as an operating system that I call the dance of contempt, okay? What happens is, the dance of contempt is always started by one person, and then the next step is made by the other person. And here you go, dancing your dance of contempt all around your home, around the grocery store if you got cut off in line, on the freeway if somebody was being a jerk there, you know. One person always begins with kind of the offensive version of contempt, and then the other person responds with a defensive version of contempt, and then here we go. So here's an example. Let's say, for example, this is a person I was working with recently. He's finishing up his long day at work, okay? His wife calls right at the end of his day and says, honey, would you mind swinging by the grocery store on the way home and just grabbing a gallon of milk? And he says, no problem, honey. be more than happy to swing by the grocery store and grab some milk. Hangs up the phone, finishes returning a few emails, responds to a couple of text messages, takes a quick peruse of the appointments that he has tomorrow, make sure everything's lined up there, starts to spin on the last meeting of the day, and as he does, he gets into his car and he drives straight home, walks in the back door, no milk. Wife looks over from the kitchen, the kids are all over the place is a mess, she's been doing the best she can to manage. She's trying to finish up dinner. She looks up with weary eyes, sees his hands are not holding milk. And here it comes, the dart. Are you ready for it? Where's the milk? Okay. And he goes, oh, I completely forgot the milk. You always do this. Feel that contempt? Offensive, attack, blame, accusation, judgment. You always do this. You go off to work, building your company, living your dream while I'm here in the minutia of life, managing the home, cleaning toilets, doing your laundry, fixing your meals. We're secondary to you. He responded, great. Just kidding. Time for his step in the dance of contempt, defensive. Do you have any idea what my day was even like today? Like, do you even care that maybe there's a good reason I forgot the milk? Do you have any idea the problems I'm trying to solve in my head? Sorry, I forgot milk at the store. I'll go get it right freaking now. No. That's just like you just want an easy fix, put a Band-Aid on it, world revolves around you. And here they go, the dance of contempt. The dance of contempt is terrible. It causes us to feel things in our body that are physically uncomfortable, okay? And that prompts a quick escape. And there are 4 vehicles that you have learned to use over the course of your life to escape this contemptuous cycle. And you've heard of these. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You know what those are, I think. Fight is, I'll get big and loud and overpower you, essentially. Shut this whole thing down. Flight is, I either do that inside of me or I physically leave the room. I'm just out of here. Like I'll withdraw, I'll self-isolate and punish you by removing my presence. Freeze is I shut down and I can't think, I can't breathe, I just kind of go numb. And fawn is kind of trying to win the other person, over. So if a snake slithered out here on stage, not my forte, I would either grab this stand and start beating it, fight, or the stage would be empty. I'd be in that green room so fast, flight, or I just shut down and I can't move, I'm paralyzed, freeze, or I start petting the snake and talking sweet to the snake and start feeding the snake nibbles, make it my pet. Hey, buddy, fun, okay? It's likely you have a preference towards one of those 4 escape methodologies, trying to escape the dance of contempt. And then you have a second one that's kind of like the second cord on the parachute. If you pull the first one and that one didn't work, you pull the second cord. So you've got a primary and you've got a secondary. For example, I'm a fawn fight guy. I will fawn all over you, trying to win you over, get you to like me, get you to lighten up. It's cool, And if that's not working, I will fight so hard. I will start to get big and loud and try to intimidate and let me just shut this, I'll overpower this whole thing, So think about you. What's your primary escape chute or escape methodology? And then when that doesn't work, what do you grab as your secondary? What's your survival strategy in that sense? Whatever it is, here's what you must understand. We all do it. We all are real good dancers at dancing the cycle of contempt. And B, once it just gets to that point where I just can't handle the physical discomfort anymore, we're all really good in jumping into our escape vehicle and blowing the whole thing up. Contempt played out in these ways is where relationships go to die, or at least go to sleep. Because you cannot attune with another while judging, accusing, blaming, rationalizing, justifying, and spinning. You cannot attune when you are living in an escape mode of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And a very hard reality is this is where the vast majority of us live our lives, with everybody. And we wonder why we don't always like how it feels to be alive. So, what can you do? More specifically, how do you disempower your survival-based operating system that causes you to show up in the world fighting, withdrawing, freezing up, or people-pleasing so that you can practice instead attuning and experience the connection that comes along with it? Here are 3 practices for you to consider that can revolutionize your life and your relationships. Number 1, you must redefine the enemy. You must choose to stop making other people and all of their contempt, because everybody's got it, okay? So if somebody acts contemptuously towards you, you must choose not to make them your enemy. So stop making your boss, your roommate, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, the enemy. Instead, you must make the dance of contempt the enemy. That's the enemy, the dance. I will no longer participate in this dance. I will destroy this dance inasmuch as it depends upon me. When the dance tries to cut in on you because your spouse threw a dart when he realized you forgot the milk, or she realized you forgot the milk, you must train yourself to defeat the enemy by not engaging in the dance. And you work for attunement instead, okay? You always do this. Oh, honey, I feel terrible that I forgot the milk. What's it like for you when you clearly ask me to do something and I walk in the door and I haven't done it? What's that like for you? Well, sometimes I feel like, am I missing it? I know we made this decision that I was going to stay home with the kids and do this, but sometimes, if I'm honest, it's just not fulfilling to me, and I feel forgotten. I feel invisible behind these walls. How do you think he's going to respond to that? Gosh, I'm so sorry. How can we work together to, you broke the dance. That's number 1. Stop making other people the enemy. Make the dance the enemy. Okay? You got to destroy the dance. Number 2, practice. Be intentional about healing your hurt. Please do not believe that because you have learned something new here tonight, that you're now equipped to go and change. I don't know if you've ever tried that. Like, I read a book, I heard a podcast, I listened to a great sermon. And after I heard it, I went, that's it. I'm inspired, I'm stirred up. This time I'm serious. I'm going to apply these principles and change. It doesn't work. I'm speaking from experience. And that, I want to add, that's rich soil for some serious toxic shame and discouragement to grow. If you just learn something new and then you go try to apply it, my gosh, that's a dangerous road to travel. Education does not result in transformation by itself. It's a wonderful first step. Wonderful, necessary first step and prerequisite for change. But education by itself does not result in transformation. You have to go do the work. You have to go apply the theory and practicum. And then you have to do it again. And then you have to do it again. And then you have to do it again. This is not a popular, well, let me use this metaphor. Justin on the fly. Do you know why Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are so amazing? I mean, everybody in the NFL is amazing athletes. They're all great, or they wouldn't be there. Do you know why they're so elite? Because when he throws that fade to him in the end zone, he's done it 10,000 times. It's muscle memory. He knows exactly where he's going to be. Kelce knows exactly where the ball's going to be when he turns around. It's there. He's just got to catch. Like, they've done that route, that pass, that throw 10,000 times, and it's just muscle memory, and you can't defend that. You can't do it. So it's not just about, here's theoretically what you do. You go out here, you run a hitch, you I'll toss the ball up. It's, the theory is not enough. It could be a great idea, but until you've repped it 10,000 times, it's not elite, okay? So you got to do the work. Now, secondly, you got to be intentional about healing this hurt. I personally believe that you should consider using 5% of your budget to do your own deep healing and growth work. That's what I do in my own family, 5%, okay? Now, for some of you, that's an Audible subscription. It's great. For some of you, that's doing some one-on-one therapy. That's doing some spiritual direction. For some, you might need to go do some 12-step work. For some, you may be able to pull off like some intensive programs where you actually go away and you're on site and something like that. But whatever it is, whatever 5% represents for you, take your healing seriously. I know there's a million options out there that can feel overwhelming. You may not know where to begin. If that's you, I'm going to put a slide up here in just a bit for a free spiritual and relational health assessment that's going to help you kind of just know how are you really doing in your heart and in your soul. But first, redefine the enemy. Second, be intentional about your healing. You got to do that. And then the third practice is to practice attunement. You've got to practice attunement. Now, individually, you can do that with a little acronym that I use called Clumsy Ned. Okay, now clumsy because if you want to do this work, it's clumsy, you guys. It's not. You can't be perfect at it. You're going to step on toes. You're going to fall flat on your face. Remember the first time I was trying to do this kind of more attachment, attunement work instead of this cycle of contempt with my wife, and I just said to her, "Oh, what are you feeling right now?" And she said, "I feel like you're a jerk." It's like, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought, but. So it's got to be clumsy. You got to be willing to be clumsy, okay? But then Ned stands for like this little, I'm just realizing I can do this up here. This stands for name. That's the N. The E stands for explore. And then the D stands for decide, okay? Can I name what's going on inside of me? There's tons of clinical studies on this, by the way. When you notice you're having physically uncomfortable things that start to happen, like the pit in your stomach, burn in your sternum, tightness in your chest, knot in your throat, disoriented kind of sensation, dizziness in your head, you feel flesh like. Those are all feelings. Those are physical manifestations of feelings. So when you notice that, the N is, can I name it? Can I find 2 or 3 words to describe what it is? Oh, is that like stress, anxiety, fear, right? Name it, then explore it. Well, what's that stress or that anxiety or that fear about? Like, what's it connected to? Oh, the deadline that's due tomorrow. I have to speak in front of people later this evening. My son is graduating high school, and it's a big mystery. How's he going to do out there in the wild on his own? My other son got his drive, like, oh, he could get in a car accident. He could be harmed. I get like, can I explore what the feeling is about? And then the D is decide what to do with it. Because the goal of really good feelings work and really good heart work is never just to sit in the feeling. That sounds terrible. Like getting waterboarded by your feelings or something? That's awful. The goal is to move through the feeling. Kind of just let the feeling pass through you. Endure the discomfort, let it pass through, and decide, where's this thing leading me to go? What need is connected to the feeling that I can be intentional about getting met in a healthy way? Okay? So you begin to practice attunement with yourself. No. Where's the milk? Whoa, feelings show up. You always do this. More feelings, bigger ones. All right, what's going on? What's like in your head? Like, all right, what was all that? I feel shame. I feel guilt. I feel hurt. It feels like make a mistake. I feel lonely maybe. I'm not being seen. So I start to name it. The trick of this is what I do to me, I will do to you. So if I'm ignoring my own feelings, repressing them, pushing them down, dismissing them, telling myself to be reasonable, telling myself to suck it up, be a man, something like that, if I'm doing that to me, I will do that to you. But if I'm working to be curious about, well, what is that? Like, what am I feeling right now? I'm willing to explore it. What's it about? Well, what do I need? If I'm doing that for myself, I'll do that for you too. What are you feeling right now? What was that like for you when he said that or she did this? Where has that shown up in your story before? What do you need right now? How can I help? Right? Deeply relational. So individually, clumsy Ned to practice attuning. With yourself, you can get up in the morning and you're journaling first thing, do your Bible study, whatever it is, but then just check in with yourself. Where am I at? Like, what's in there today? You can just write about it. Pick 2 or 3 words that just describe what's going on in there. What's it about? What do I need? You do that alone, it will change your life. Because you start doing that with you just from a place of care, not judgment, you will start to do it for others. Okay. So do it on your own, and then select a group of like 3 to 5 that represent safe people for you, and invite them to grow deeper. You have some fun. Watch people's face when you go, I'd like to grow deeper with you. What's that mean? 3 to 5. They might say no. That's okay. But then get together with them once a month, twice a month, once a week, I don't know, and practice attuning. Like, state the purpose of it. Like, let's really, authentic relationships are important. Let's practice it together. We're just going to show up once a month. We're going to go, man, here's what's going on inside of me. Here's what I think it's connected to. This thing at work, that thing in my family, this thing with my son. I'm not sure what I need, but I'm trying to decide that. Open to suggestions. Everybody just go around, share something like that. An hour, 2 hours, change your life, promise. The way you heal the wounded places in your heart is by offering what it didn't have back there, somewhere between being born looking for someone looking for you and your present day ache for that. You offer it attunement. And people say to me all the time, what's the point of going back there and revisiting all that? It happened. There's nothing you can do about it. You move on. That is terrible thinking. There is something you can do about it. You can heal it. And the way that you heal it, you know what it is? You sit in a group with other human beings who are safe. You talk out loud about your life and the pain of your life, and you experience their response. That will literally cause the neurons in your brain to connect up differently with each other than they are right now. but you got to make the step. All right. We're going to do some questions now. So as we prepare for that, a couple things. I mentioned a slide with a QR code that's going to come up there. Again, this will take you to a free assessment that will help you know exactly kind of what's going on in your own heart and soul. It's hard to know, like, where am I at? This will tell you where you're at. If you're honest, like, be brutally honest with this thing. And it'll help tell you where you're at. This assessment's confidential, so the only people that are going to see it is you and a qualified person at Plumline, my company. And when you take it, you're going to get a report that will immediately be emailed to your inbox. So if you want to discuss that report, like, help me interpret this, help me understand what this means, there's also an opportunity to do that will be there in that email at no cost to you, like a free coaching call that will help you understand, well, where do I begin with this? Like, what's my first step? Second thing, as we're preparing for these questions, is if you really want to plunge into this stuff, I've got a weekend intensive coming up, June 20th through the 23rd this month, in a couple of weeks, and I have 2 spots left in that one, June 20th through the 23rd outside of Nashville. And I've got a marriage intensive, bring it on, coming up, July 18th through the 21st. Both of those are just outside of Nashville. If you would like more information about those intensives, scan that QR code. It's going to lead you to an info page where you can just read a little bit more about that. And I would love to have you come and join me at one of those. Okay, how do you want to handle questions?
Well, first, can we just say thank you?
Thanks.
Hey, I hope you know it is a true gift having you here. And I'm listening to you, and I'm taken back to February's intensive. Mm-hmm. So I would just say this, if you scan that and you're like, I want to do it, I'm on the fence, I would encourage you to do it. Mm-hmm. It was life-changing, so thank you for doing that. There's a lot of questions.
Great.
And we don't have all the time. And now I'm getting more questions text, okay? Which, by the way, the person who said the AC in the auditorium is kicking, I love it. And they said, where'd you get your AC unit? I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Spiritual health and authentic connection, how related are the two?
That's fast. I love, whoever asked that's a genius. So
I typed it. No, but no, I'm just kidding.
That's me.
No, I don't know who asked it. I don't know.
So my doctoral dissertation, that was one of the research questions for me. It was, how does this heart group, this is the theory that undergirds the whole heart cohort that I facilitate. The 3 questions were, how does this heart theory stuff put into this program, how does it affect relational well-being? What's the impact on relational well-being in a person's life once they've gone through it? What's the impact of spiritual well-being? And then the third research question was, are those 2 things correlated? Which is the exact question that you just asked. So I'm not responding from like, oh, I think maybe they are. From a research-based perspective, they are attached at the hip. So in other words, if your relational well-being goes up, your spiritual well-being will go up, and vice versa. If your spiritual well-being goes up, your relational well-being will go up. But it's not just about like the kind of the rigorous, mind and strength practices of spiritual disciplines. That's not what actually does it. Those things are very important. We need good theology. We need good doctrinal confessions. We need good spiritual practices. I'm just saying those things by themselves aren't enough. Jesus affirmed we have 4 critical parts of our makeup. We've got a heart, but we've also got a soul, but we've also got a mind, and we've also got strength. So just building your mind and strength and learning and doing won't create change. You also need to do heart work, like we talked about here, and you need to do soul work, which is a whole other thing. But they're all, if you do it well, they're correlated.
Now I want to read your dissertation, but that's for another thing.
It is not fun reading.
Well, then you can just talk to us and you can tell us all about it. is attunement possible as an adult? You answered this, but the second part of this question is, where do you start? And I'll just add this. The older you get, the harder it is to make friends.
Yeah.
And attunement is well beyond making a friend.
Yeah, that's right.
So where do you start?
Yeah. So it's a valid question, because especially when you're an adult, because like probably the most connected in terms of proximity and the amount of time and energy that went to building relationships for me was like college, you know? It's like you looked into my relational yard, it's a metaphor, in college, and it was like giant scoops with a backhoe, you know, like these deep, you know? And you look across my relational yard now, and it's like I got a little teaspoon, and there's all these little divots, you know, across it. There's a lot of them. None of them are really deep, just these divots. And that's the nature of the stage of life that you're in as an adult. You're now working. You have a lot more responsibility. Maybe there's kids in the picture. Maybe a more serious romantic relationship. Maybe you're building something. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you work the night shift and you slip. Like, you know, there's all kinds of things that dictate your time. And so you have to be a little more choosy. You can't cast as wide of a net. And the beautiful thing about relationships, hey, let me set some of you free. You're not required to be friends with anybody. It's like sometimes as Christians, it's like I'm obligated. Like if somebody wants to be my friend, I got to be their friend. It's like, no, you don't. You get to choose. You get to choose who you want to be in relationship with. You certainly get to choose who you want to be in deep relationship with. So there's a guy named Robin Dunbar. He's a clinical sociologist from the UK. And he created this thing called the Dunbar number. And he says, just like human beings are limited in how long they can hold their breath underwater, right? It's like there's an average of about how long a human can hold their breath. Like maybe Navy SEALs are setting the high bar. Somebody who smokes 12 packs a day is setting the low bar. But there's an average, okay? Just like you can only run a 40-yard dash so fast. NFL cornerbacks, high bar, me with my knees, probably setting the low bar at this point. But you can run it about so fast, right? The same is true of how many relationships you're actually capable of having. You're so limited when it comes to the number of people you can actually know. And the number 150 is called the Dunbar number. He says you tap out at 150 people. And it breaks down into these segments.
That sounds like a lot of friends.
Well, I'm talking 150 is like you bump into them in Walmart and you go, hey, Preston, what's up? And I can't quite remember your last name. And I know you're married and you got some kids, but I don't remember how many. And hey, good to see you, man. So the level of relationship where it would be a little offensive if I didn't go, hey, man, what's up? You know, like that's the high end of the 150. It breaks, he calls that the public sphere, I think. And then there's like 50 within the 150 that is kind of like you interact with them a lot. It's all about proximity, like how much time you spend with somebody. So maybe our kids play on the same baseball team together. So I see you a couple of times a week. Maybe we go to church together and we sit in the same row and we're in the same small group or so. We volunteer together on the coffee team. So maybe they're in the 50, right? And then there's the 15, and these are the people that you're pretty intentional about. Like if you're gonna go out to dinner on a Friday night, you're having a birthday party, you're gonna invite some people. You're probably inviting the 15. And then there's the 5. And the 5 are the people that you go the deepest with. You know, those are the people that when you're looking to maybe get together once a month and go, let's talk about what's going on inside of us. Like, you only really do that with the 5. So be choosy, choose well. You get to decide who you want to invite to a deeper relationship with you. And then don't put too much pressure on yourself. You are busy. You are limited. You do have to divvy it up. So pick 3 to 5, be really intentional with them, and let the other relationships just be what they are.
Okay, there's questions everywhere. So I hate looking at my phone when I'm like, I want to look, I just want to have a conversation with you, but one of the questions is this. Some theologies say you're broken and you're sinful.
Yeah.
But you're saying you're delightful. Can you explain?
Yeah. Can't both be true? Like, kind of this extreme thinking of it's all good or it's all bad, or I'm all good or I'm all bad, is part of what's really damaging and harmful. even bigger than this subject matter that we're talking about. It's very harmful to society when we engage in that kind of extreme thinking. But the truth is that most people are not good or bad. They consist of light and shadow. And part of deep relationship is embracing and accepting people's shadow and then accepting, embracing their light. And I'll even say that's true for you. Like your own attunement is going to start with you not denying that you have shadow, but not denying that you have light either. So all modern psychology is built on the shoulders of two guys, okay? Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. It's all standing on their shoulders, okay? They agreed on some things, they disagreed on others. One of the things they disagreed on is Freud believed you needed to reject the dark, failed parts of yourself, like those younger versions of you that blew it, that screwed up, that made the mistake, that went bankrupt, that unraveled the relationship, that, whatever it is. Freud would say, yeah, we need to learn to reject those and parts and move past. Jung, the Swiss psychologist, just the opposite. He says, you need to do to those dark, broken parts of you what Jesus does for you. I accept you. I forgive you. I love you. I do not reject you. You have a seat at my table. You don't get to lead anymore. I'll take care of us from here, but I want you in my life. You're part of me. You're part of this story, and I accept you, okay? You start doing that for yourself, you'll do it for others. You'll stop requiring them to be light, not broken, sinful. You're either broken and sinful or you're delightful. It's like, well, what if we're both? So, yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
A lot about marriage, and I'm not going to say the names of the people. They're all numbers, so the good news, I don't have their names. What if your spouse doesn't care to practice attunement?
Yeah. So feels tough to say, but you actually don't need your spouse in order for you to practice attunement. So a lot of people that I work with have this exact dilemma. And the truth of the matter is that one person practicing it will affect the other one in some way or the other. And it's super hard if one person is kind of committed to kind of doing that work and kind of growing in this area and the other person just isn't. But you're going to have to renegotiate the relationship.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. My feelings and needs are not my wife's responsibility. That's big what I just said. You know why? You say the A word in here? Because I'm a grown butt man. So my feelings and needs are not her job. They're my job. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean she doesn't care about my feelings and needs. Okay? I'll flip it. My wife's feelings and needs are not my responsibility. She's a grown butt woman. Okay? Now, I care about her feelings and needs. I'm willing to be asked for what she wants and needs with me. I'm willing to ask her for what I want and need with her, but I'm willing to tell her no sometimes, and she's got to be willing to tell me no. If she always tells me no, we got a problem. We don't have a relationship. But if she can't tell me no, her yes doesn't mean anything. Okay? So, immature hearts, immature emotional attachment work ends up making everybody else responsible for their feelings and needs without even realizing it. It's like it's your job to make, my well-being is your job. So figure out what I need, kind of do it, behave a certain way around me, always do certain things, never do others, play certain roles in my life that keep me okay, and let's just psychologically agree to that together without ever really talking about it. Okay, that's a very unhealthy relationship. Okay, so rather than making you responsible for me, I'm willing to be responsible for me. The flip side of that coin is there's not a need I have that I can meet on my own, which means I got to ask, and I got to be willing to hear no. So the difference between responsibility, like it's my role to be sure that you're good, and the two words response-ability. I have the ability to respond to you when you seek me out, when you ask those types of things. That makes sense? Okay.
2 more questions.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's from Nixa. What are some examples of things withheld from us that cause contempt?
Nurture, love, kindness. It happens we see it all the time, right? Like somebody's if you're typical, you probably grew up, and I've done this to my own kids, by the way, so I'm not pointing the finger at everybody else. Like I've done this when my kids were younger. But, when a child is having big feelings and emoting, they're sent to their room and they're not allowed to come out until what? Yeah. So you can calm down, so you can have a reasonable conversation, And I think it's what they knew, it's what was done to them, it's what they know, so that's how they parent their own kids. But think about the message that child is receiving. What's going to qualify me to be in the family? What's going to qualify me to be in the relationship? I can't be having feelings. I've got to be reasonable, And so we're taught from the time we're young that what maturity is to go and get yourself together on your own. And our very biology denies that. It takes 60% more glucose to the brain. That's fuel. 60% more glucose to the brain to talk yourself off the ledge than it does to turn to somebody. You're made to turn to somebody, right? And so again, well-meaning parents that just did the best they could with what they got, withhold true nurture and true guidance, true delight, And it's, again, you don't have to be perfect with this. 5 out of 10 times is good enough. 5 out of 10 times you're in the Parenting Hall of Fame, all right? But, yeah.
So this is kind of a combination of questions, okay? What you're talking about is very hard. But I will say, when I practice clumsy Ned, it does change things, but it's hard. It is easier to distract ourselves into spiritual oblivion, right? How do you break free and go, I'm going to go for it. I'm going for spiritual health.
Yeah.
I'm going for relational health.
What's the question?
That's how do you break free? Like how would you tell someone this should help you when it's easier to just go to the default fight, flight. It's just easier. That's the easier method, right?
All
it's the hard drive.
Step 1, if you're using something instead of a tuning, which we all do, right? It's like, I'm having these feelings. I'm going to pour another glass of bourbon. I'm having these feelings. I'm going to scroll. I'm going to pull up my phone and do whatever I do on there. I'm having these feelings. I'm going to binge watch something on Netflix. Or actively, I'm having these feelings. I'm going to go for another run, right? I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to take on more hours at work. I'm going to work longer and harder. I'm going to go work on my project in the garage, right? Whatever I'm using to avoid or repress the feelings, 2 things as a first step to breaking it. Number 1, you're not crazy. Okay, so you have to name what's the benefit of doing that, because there is one. Okay, like what's the ROI of working on my project in the garage rather than clumsy Ned, rather than naming, exploring, deciding what to do with it, doing that with the other person. Hey, what's that like for you? What's going on in you right now? What's that about? I care about, There's a benefit, so you got to name that. Here's what I get positively out of avoiding these feelings and these things. Secondly, what's the cost? What price do you have to pay to pull out your phone instead of clumsy Ned? To go into the garage and work on your deal instead of clumsy Ned? With yourself, with the person, okay? What price do you have to pay? I can get real emotional real fast if you start asking me that question, because my kids are 18, 16, and 13 now. And the price that I've paid for dismissing my own kids because I didn't want to feel the discomfort of what was going on inside of me, I will never get those moments back with them. They're gone forever. I will never get them back. And I ain't willing to miss any more. Benefit? Yeah, I made it. I survived. I got through the week. I didn't go ate poop. I'm doing good up here. On somebody, I didn't lose my job. I did it. There's a benefit. I survived those really hard years when they were young. My gosh, those are hard years because you're juggling so much and you're exhausted all the time. And it cost me a lot. And I'm no longer willing to pay that price. So I would say if you want to break it, the first thing you got to do is do some real solid reflection work about, all right, there is a benefit. I'm not crazy and I'm not broken or something. I'm doing this for a reason. Oh, well, this makes sense. Look at the benefit. And it does have a price. Here's what it is. And you may decide when you do that, I'm willing to pay this price. And that's okay. If that's where you're at, that's okay. But if you do that exercise and you go, I'm no longer willing to pay that price to get this benefit. This benefit is not worth that price for me. Start doing Clumsy Ned very practically. Not instead of your other stuff, not instead of praying or instead of your Bible study, whatever it is. But just add a 5-minute little snippet where you pull out a journal and you try to find 2 or 3 words that describe, and try to use words that if you're oh, I'm stressed, and that's just a kind of a pull-out word that's super easy for you, make yourself grab 2 or 3 other words around that describe it. Because what you're doing when you do that, when you make yourself use language, there's 2 things about this part of the brain back here, the limbic system where your feelings live. One is there's no language. This part of the brain doesn't code language. This part does. That's why when you're really worked up, you feel like an idiot. You just can't find any words to reasonably describe. It's there's no language back here. So you're up a creek if you're trying to use words to describe what's happening, So this doesn't code language. But the second thing back here is it doesn't recognize time. There's no time back here, which is why something that happened to you when you were 8 might as well have happened yesterday and will inform the way I relate with you and react to something today. Okay? So when you make yourself grab words that describe what's going on, you're bringing your prefrontal cortex into the limbic system and you're integrating them, that's more alignment with your whole brain. And that's very kind to yourself. Now you're leading yourself. And instead of, listen, there's a huge difference between having feelings. What's going on here? You back? Got it. All right. There's a huge difference between having feelings and your feelings having you. That's big. Some people say, I don't need your group. I got no problem. Heart's on my sleeve. I can tell. I moat. You don't have to read my mind. I'll tell you. I'm going, you need my group more than anybody. Feelings driving the car of your life around, pushing out words and behaviors and using them to manipulate, control people. That's awful. Feelings don't get to drive. You driving. Navigators, important passengers on your bus, but they don't. It's like giving the wheel of your life to a 7-year-old going 80 miles an hour down the highway. It's irresponsible. So you're driving, right? So you bring this into the picture. Okay, oh, there it is. All right, can I pull this in and use words to describe this? And then can I use this to explore, all right, what's that about for me? Oh, I got this deadline. That's what that's what mom used to say or do. No wonder I'm so, all right, I got me. What do I need? I need this. My wife the other day, this is very healthy. She said, I'm lonely with you. I've been busy, had to work evenings, we launched new groups. I'm lonely with you. Can we go on a walk tonight? You know how emotionally mature and healthy that is? She could have been passive aggressive, give me the silent treatment, start narrating about me in her own head. He's so selfish, he just cares about his work, we're secondary. She could have done all that. She did Clumsy Ned with herself. Okay, I'm feeling something. What am I feeling? It's making me kind of want to wall up to my husband. What am I feeling? All right, I'm lonely. I feel unknown by him. I feel unseen. I feel invisible. What do I need? I need to connect. Can we go on a walk tonight? And I said, yeah, we can. And we did. And welcome to Clumsy Ned and how it plays out, okay? So, yeah.
So much more that we could talk about, but I would just encourage everyone, check out your resources. There's a link, so northpointchurch.tv/masterclass. We actually have a link there that says, here's your digital resource kit. It's got your stuff in there. It's got the intensive, link to the intensive. It's got some of the books that you recommended, some other books, but check that out. Can we give Jake a round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such a gift. Thank you. Such a gift having you here. Thank you for being here. We'll do a masterclass once a month. Next month, we're talking about how do you pass on a faith to your kids that they don't have to heal from. And we're bringing Meredith Miller in to talk about that. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.